They moved in a staggered file along the canal wall, boots on the narrow ribbon of hard dirt between water and brush. The heat hadn't climbed yet. It lay low, waiting, held down by a white, chalk-rubbed sky. Staff Sergeant Harlan's voice came soft on the net, more metronome than command. 2-6 copies. Keep it slow and smart. Farmers along the east berm. Eyes out for fishing line. Over. PFC Mason Cole, 19, compact, competitive with the horizon, held second in the stack, just behind Lance Corporal Vega and half a step ahead of his best friend, Corporal Eli Rains. Left, right, left. The mindless rhythm that left headroom for the other rhythm pounding in his chest. Dust on his tongue. Battery metal. The village ahead sat low inside itself, a half-closed fist. Window slits. A collapsed roof under a blue tarp. The smell of dung fires, the sour sweet of irrigation, a copper note like rain that hadn't happened yet. Rains tapped his calf twice. You good? Not a question, more of a grip. Cole nodded, trying to be boring. Vega raised a gloved thumb without looking back. Boring was good. Boring meant a patrol ended as a line on a map, not a letter home. Through a gap in a mud wall and into a small courtyard. A pomegranate tree leaned toward the middle like a conspirator. Yellow jugs, while to kitchen and back, stood in tidy ranks beside a door. The air felt staged. No goat. No kid. No boy with a stick pretending it was a rifle. So quiet the quiet had an echo. Harlan, lower now. Short halt. Vega, take a knee. Cole, cover the north alley. Rains, watch our 6. Cole slid into the corner. The alley was a slit, 8 strides end to end, a broken bicycle, a pile of bricks, a door on its last hinge. Heat licked the back of his neck. He eased his boot into a groove polished by traffic and thought. Someone lived a whole life in this 10 feet. Breathe in, out. The world narrowed to angles, corners, jams, shadows. Something clinked. So small it could have been memory. Metal on stone, like a ring on a mug. Cole turned and saw it. Rounded, olive, wrong. Bounce once. Roll to a stop against the brick pile. Spoon already gone. Pin already absent. Spring having done its job without noise. Time did what it does when it sees a cliff, pulled back, and leaned in. Less than a second to spend like money. Some choices men deliberate. Some they already made long ago. He didn't look at Rains, didn't measure distance, didn't gamble on a kick. He thought only of between. The space you put your body when mine and ours are not the same word. Grenade. Vega's voice, high and flat. Cole moved. Down and forward, left shoulder turning to shield, a kneel turned animal. The world shrank to the size of his chest and the metal egg under it. Chin tucked, elbows in, everything he was pressed into mortar, brick, and the thing beneath him that liked to end sentences. The blast came up through him like a verdict. Light, not for seeing, for striking, hammered his ribs. Sound failed, then returned as ripped cloth inside his skull. Heat threw a blanket over him and tore it away. Brick dust leapt and hung. New weather. Right hand, Nova. Left cheek, a shape geometry didn't approve. The ground lifted him and set him down. What should have been inside felt briefly outside, considering options. For a clean slice of time, no noise. As if the air had backed into a corner to decide whether to return. Then the world arrived all at once. Rain screaming his name, Vega cursing, boots scraping, a far dog that hated thunder. Inventory, room clear fast to slow. Toes. Yes. Knees. Yes. Hands. Right a swarm of bees, left answering from a tunnel. Breathing, short, wet, stubborn. Eyes. Right saw a gray world in a bright frame. Left a smear that didn't change when he blinked. Pain, present, insistent, not the end unless he agreed. Rains dropped beside his face, heavy and careful. I've got you, I've got you. Words tumbling over themselves. Vega crashed into the alley mouth, blocking a view no one should own. I'm up. I'm up. Harlan, break. Dead in the pocket. One urgent surgical. Frag to face and hand. Perimeter, now. Cole tried to say sorry and shut up, you're loud. But his mouth had quit on the idea of words. He made a sound that proved a line still existed between worlds. Rain slid a hand under his neck and winced. Don't move, he ordered, specific and ridiculous. One-handed, he ripped a tourniquet off his kit. The Velcro screamed too loud in the small space and cinched it high on Cole's right arm. Cole's vision flared, then tunneled, then steadied in a floating way. Stay with me, Rains said, and Cole obeyed, because orders and friendship sound like the same thing when spoken right. Harlan knelt into view, edges hard, face wet with dust. Angel inbound, he said on the net. Green route to HLZ Bravo. Smoke on signal. Vega, talk threats. Nothing moving, doors or eyes only. Civs split before we hit. Feels set. Copy. Keep it. Rains, how is he? Talking with his eyes. Harlan leaned close so Cole could see his mouth. Listen, Mason, steady voice, right before shot voice. You're doing outstanding. We're going to fly. Your only job is breathe. I'm putting a buddy rag here to slow the face bleeder, okay? Tap if you need a pause. Cole tried to nod. His face made everyone flinch. Harlan pressed gauze to left cheek and temple with the exact mix of tenderness and pressure a dad uses on a nosebleed in a church bathroom. The world tunneled, came back. Rains glanced once at the crater, dinner plate size, a black bite out of brick, and swallowed something unhelpful. He set his clean hand on Cole's shoulder, not heavy, just there. You still owe me $20, he said softly. Cole tried to roll his eye. A good joke simply because it remembered a world where $20 mattered. Radio popped. 2-6, dust off 3-4, 1 minute out. Mark friendly. Copy. Green smoke, Harlan said. Then to Vega. Pop it. Vega hissed a ring pull, tossed. The courtyard bloomed, sickly emerald. Rotor chop arrived from flat distance, became roof rattle. Dust rose in columns. A face at a window watched, mouth open. Harlan lifted a finger toward it, and the face withdrew like tide. Up, Harlan barked. On 3. We're walking him. Rains and Vega slid arms under Cole's shoulders. His legs answered on a delay. Fire ran calf to skull and back. He chose to interpret it as position data, not despair. They staggered, the 3 of them a lopsided animal, through the courtyard, under the tree, into a street the helicopter pounded into brown fog. The door gunner's silhouette was a black cutout in a holy card. Hands he didn't know took him with urgent reverence, the relay handoff. The corpseman's face came close, eyes sharp and tender. Hey, brother, like a bartender who'd seen the kind of night you'd had. I'm Doc Pike. You're not dying on my bird. Copy. Cole blinked copy. Good. Mask on. Oxygen settled. BP's soft. Needle on left. Sharp pain, then a breath that fit better. Tourniquet looks clean. I'm adding 1 proximal to be mean. You can hate me later. Cinch. The world narrowed and loosened at once. Rains's helmet bumped the doorframe as he leaned in. I'm right behind you, man. Next bird. Cole tried to shake his head. Don't you dare. But the hello rose and the ground took Rains away like a stagehand yanking a set. Pike's hand pressed Cole's sternum. Stay put. And the sky rolled upside down and back to neutral. Minutes to the Roll 2 hospital were a thin wire over empty space. Cole hung on. Pike kept talking, narrating the body like it needed a story to stay. Small breaths. Good. You're winning. Pulse is rude but consistent. We like rude. Left eye swollen. We'll negotiate later. Syringe time. This is not the end. Hear me? Not the end. Cole wanted to say I'm trying very hard to be boring, but Pike was telling the pilots to run the approach again. Crosswind. The bird swung, settled, jolted. Doors flew wider. The world converted to bright. A hallway smelling of salt and bleach. A ceiling running on rails. Faces that did not panic. A voice using his last name like homeroom. Cole, can you hear me? Squeeze if you can. He squeezed. Good man. That face left. Another arrived. Older. Eyes kind without softness. I'm Major Estes. I'm going to fix what the morning tried to break. They cut what was left. Sleeve, plate carrier, shirt. Scissors sounded like the first half of a laugh. Someone counted shrapnel like rosary beads. A light stabbed his pupil, and someone said, no red reflex. A hand pressed somewhere he couldn't feel. Terrifying, normal, terrifying. Nasal trumpet's not an option, someone said. Then we'll cut a door, Estes answered, clean and sure. 2 ketamine, 2 grams cephalo. Let's get a line we trust. Numbers arrived as cold rivers in his arm. Ceiling lights drifted farther apart. Noise stepped back to a respectful distance. Time, heroic, tired, elastic, decided to behave like time again. Cole, Estes said, close, voice like handing you a newborn. We're taking you to the quiet room. When you wake, It'll be later and better. He wanted to believe later and better could coexist. He decided they would because the man said so while stitching with his voice. Darkness with edges, then none, then a slow slope toward a soft brightness. He heard beeps, 2, 3, 4, and a hiss like a far argument settling. Something at his throat felt strange and then gone. A nurse's voice. Tube out. Good cough. That's it. Praise at a piano recital. First thing he saw clearly was Raines's boot, parked like a visiting relative at the foot of the bed. Second was Raines himself, half asleep in a chair, chin on chest, a paperback giving up its fight with gravity. Vegas sat on the radiator, elbows on knees, head down, knuckles being knuckles. Cole's voice came out gravel, trying to be water. $20, he said. Raines snapped awake, stared, then laughed out of his ribs. You absolute. He swallowed the curse and grinned. You absolute Marine. Vegas stood, hid his face for a second so no one saw his eyes disobeying rules. He leaned in on the rail, grip careful. Doc says you were stubborn, he said, the word squads use when they mean we were scared and were proud at once. Cole swallowed. Left face reported back with a new map of sensation. He waited, then loaded the right words like rounds in a mag. Did it work? Raines understood. He nodded once, a nod with weight. You made a wall, he said. I'm here because you were there. Vegas here because you were there. Harlan's already writing paperwork. Dumbest, bravest thing I've seen. You're never buying beer again. Major Estes appeared like a magician arriving after the trick to explain it was difficult and real. He checked vitals with an engineer's satisfaction. You're very lucky, then corrected. Very brave, and then lucky. Hands not as pretty, but fingers will count again. Face needs sculpture. We'll know more tomorrow. Lungs reinflated. You're heavier than you feel because we've hung a lot of good medicine inside you. Cole blinked. His right eye made a film of tears and decided to hold them. Thank you, he said, to the room, to Estes, to Pike who might be somewhere in the building eating a sandwich, to Raines blinking the way you blink before turning feelings into a punch on the arm. Estes nodded like signing for a delivery. You gave us something to work with, he said. That's all we ever ask. The day slid by in pieces. A corpsman cleaning a line and talking about his daughter's soccer team. A chaplain who didn't pray aloud but matched his breathing. A medic from another unit who'd seen the crater, brought a coin, left it by the water cup. Raines told the grenade story twice, shorter and truer each time. Dusk lifted in the window like a lamp dimming. Harlan stepped in from the hall, helmet underarm, dust still living on his sleeves. He stood at the foot of the bed and spoke in a voice that wasn't radio or fight. Cole, he said, what you did saved Marines. That's the line and the truth. You don't have to feel anything about it yet. Just know we saw it. Cole's throat went tight, like rope before a lift. Words weren't reliable. He nodded. Enough. The nurse swapped a bag, checked numbers, lowered the bed a notch, handed him a button. Pain control, she said. Use it like a gentleman. He pressed and felt kindness in his veins. Closed his eye. Let rotor ghosts leave his ribs. Fear came in later and tried on chairs. He let it sit and watched it leave, bored. He rewound the clink, paused it, let it run one last time that day. He examined the second from inside. Not a weighed choice, falling toward a promise made long before morning. Between was what he'd wanted to be. Between his men and what wanted them. The whole job, boiled to a second. Around midnight, Raines stood to stretch and almost fell. Vegas snared his elbow, steered him out, mumbling about food that wasn't an MRE. Cole smiled with half a mouth. Drifted. A little after 2, the door whispered. A figure in scrubs slipped in. Not Estes, not the nurse. He set something on the tray and stood in the hallway glow. Doc Pike. He looked like the helicopter had just landed. You were right, Pike said, voice under the room's line. Not the end. Cole nodded. The right words took their time. You said we would fly. Pike's grin tilted. We did. He tapped the object he'd brought, a small square case. Inside, on white card, a jagged shard of metal, a gray crescent like a cruel moon. Fragment from your plate carrier. Souvenir if you want it. Trash if you don't. Cole looked long enough to decide. Keep. Not because of pain, he thought. Because it proves the second was real, and that it ended. Pike gave a 2-finger medic salute. Sleep, he said. I'm on nights. I'll listen to the beeps. I'll listen to the beeps. Absurdly comforting. He let the darkness lean in, the machines do their polite math, and the second that changed the air find a shelf in the mind where finished things go. Dawn crept by degrees. Blue, gray, the color of paper held against a window. Rains returned with coffee made in a helmet and declared it excellent. Vega had a doorway-shaped bruise he wore like a ribbon. Harlan's radio muttered in the hall. The world, rude and alive, wanted more days. Cole looked at them and felt a release in his chest no four could give. He counted. One friend upright, another breathing, a doc on nights, a major who cut doors, a nurse who mothered without the title. A second had taken its bite. The rest, this room, these faces, was what they made from what was left. Hey, Rain said, watching him watch. You saved our stupid lives. Cole let the smallest grin tilt the side that still obeyed. Then don't waste them, he said. Thin, clear. Roger that, Vega answered, smiling too. In that ordinary answer, morning stood up. Outside, beyond concrete and sandbag and T-wall, a town began like always. Goats, buckets, bargaining, boys kicking a taped-up ball. Somewhere else, a helicopter bullied the air into cooperation. In here, the beeps were steady, the light was kind, and the second that had asked for everything finally rested where it belonged. Not a cliff to stare over, but ground to stand on.